everyone. Welcome to the Human Skills Lab, because human skills aren't soft, they're essential. I'm Heidi Peace, an educator, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
And I'm Kobe Campbell, a school counselor and licensed clinical social worker. We're teaming up to encourage and equip you to build the skills for a better life. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or looking for a little motivation, you're in the right place. Although we come from an education background, this podcast is intended for everyone.
In every episode, we'll share practical tips that you can use in your everyday life, and personal stories and some strategies along the way.
So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's figure this out together. We're so glad you're here.
This podcast is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice. Also, our views are our own and do not reflect the views of the school district for which we work.
Thanks for joining us today. Let's start, as we always do, with a little bit of accountability. From last time we talked about, our last episode, we talked about what do you do when you're trying to live your values and it's feeling not possible. There are things that you can't change, can't delegate. You're always going to look for those opportunities to delegate. But if something has been put on your plate, you can't change it. What do you do about that? And we talked a little bit about radical acceptance, some of the inner work that we can do with our thoughts, some breath work we can do to regulate our nervous systems. That's a big one, regulating your nervous system. And then a little bit about who you hang out with, the people you're surrounded with the most, can affect how you're feeling and how you're regulating yourself based on their perspective and patterns and habits as well. No shade to, people on their own journey, but what's good for you, if that makes sense in that moment. And if you don't mind, Heidi, I will start in terms of the accountability. So I talked about a couple of things. The thing that I came back to was just breathing. And it sounds so simple, but when you're talking about nervous system regulation, that is your number one tool, and it takes practice. I have to say I did pretty well on that one. Being an introvert, there were several times during this first week back to work where, during the summer you get to choose your pace, your schedule, who you're around, for how long. And so as an introvert with my little family, and we spend a lot of time together, and I do things with friends, but it's always, it's more of a flexible sort of thing. Coming back and having so many meetings and so many people around can be a little bit overwhelming and dysregulating for me. So I found myself, particularly on Friday, with an all-morning staff meeting and then going to the Welcome Back barbecue with the entire district. I felt my whole system was at a sort of revving at a higher level. And so I did find on Friday that I absolutely used 4-7-8 breathing as I was driving in traffic, to get to all the things. And it was really very helpful. So I would say this week was more successful for me in terms of those tiny moves than last week. How did things go for you?
I mean, I actually had my best start I've had.
Good for you.
I think, because all of these ideas were fresh in my brain. I mean, we're doing the podcast for you, but it's really for me. So all of the strategies were fresh in my brain, so I was really careful to take some alone time when I could get it. I exercised at an actual exercise class, and that made me feel completely relaxed, had more energy. I did that twice this week. I couldn't even believe it that I fit it in.
Nice.
And then on top of that, the visual aid. So I've been practicing watercolors, and I have been very intentional on what types of things I'm painting, and they're all very relaxing things for me. For instance, clouds and beaches, and I painted again yesterday with a friend, and I'm thinking of just putting some of my art up as a reminder to do things for myself that are calming, relaxing, and not for anybody else. Yeah. And that's good. And then, on a side note, I had some friends visit, and they brought one of their child, and she was kind of bored, so I was like, oh, do you want to draw? And so I got out supplies for her, and then I showed her my art book, and she was just super inspired by it. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, well, it's not just, I mean, it is just for me. Like, I'm not posting it to the internet, everybody, not doing it. um, but for her, she was inspired by it, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is not just, it's also showing like my own children that I can learn something new
Hmm.
that's that's not for a grade, that's not for salary increase, it's not for something else.
Yeah.
um, and it shows that I can like persevere through something. So I think in my doing it for myself, have
Hmm.
managed to model.
Yeah. I think also when you're talking about like posting it in your classroom, for you, not, I mean, not on your wall where the kid, but like in your little desk area.
Yeah, in my desk
Um,
area.
yeah, it's a reminder that this is not the only thing in our lives, right? It's not, um, it can help to right size the job, so that you, um, if you do have overworking or people pleasing tendencies, that can be that reminder that, there is something else outside of this room, office, building that is important for me.
I,
If that
I
makes
love that. Right. I love that term, right sizing. I
sense.
think also it can help prime my brain.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I see it at work, I can go, okay, when I'm off work, I can already be thinking about something else that's not work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Like a
because I
transition
feel,
object,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I feel like I can be slow to transition when I'm like into something.
Yeah.
And feeling that flow.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling the flow, it's hard to transition. So I think this might serve as a reminder for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds great. So today's topic is, speaking of flow, the difference between work-life balance and work-life flow. And so when we initially talked about doing this topic, flow sounded better to me, and I'll tell you why. Um, because in my mind, the definition of flow was the acknowledgement that sometimes would be busier than others. And instead of rigidly trying to balance all year long, when we know the school year has busier times, times when you have been in school so long and have not had a break. And so, like, this first stretch is a long one, right? Until Thanksgiving. And so, in my mind, work life flow was more busier times, not so busy times. Sometimes you're going to need to give more, but as long as you're not spending your entire, year there, then that's flow. And work life balance seemed a little less attainable. But as I was prepping for the episode, I'm like, oh, work life flow is an actual definition out there. So let me read you the definition of work life balance versus work life flow. So, work life balance is typically defined as the amount of time you spend doing your job versus the amount of time you spend doing what's important to you outside of work. And it tends to prioritize the separation between work hours and time off of work. So, in contrast, the core idea of work life integration or flow is to let daily activities flow with your life's timing rather than adhering to a strict schedule. It means you might handle personal tasks during the day. For some of us, that's not really feasible for more flexible jobs where you don't have a classroom or students or whatever. That might be a more feasible thing. But it really is the idea of your work hours are fluid and you might be doing something outside of the normal, what you would consider the normal work hours, work day, aligning your work with your like your natural rhythms. And that sounds great to me. The current position that I'm in does not really allow for that, nor does yours. That really, I love the alignment with your natural rhythms and focus and flow, because there are times of the day that focus is questionable, right? And you're losing your speed,
You're,
right?
yeah, and your priority might just be on self-regulation.
Yeah.
Like, I just had something really stressful happen, and I need to make sure that I'm standing calmly within myself
Yeah.
and not, I'm protecting my energy. I'm making sure I can make good decisions. Like
Yeah.
you might have a different priority.
Yeah. And when you have the kind of job or life that you can work according to your natural rhythms, that might be a lot more productive for you. The thing that stood out for me about work-life integration or work-life flow, if you will, is that it can be if you do not. It varies based on personality, your patterns, and your habits. It can be rife for exploitation
Hmm.
and lack of boundaries
Yeah.
and overworking. So while it sounds good to me to sort of, work with your focus, your natural focus and flow, for those of us who tend to overwork or people please or whatever, that can be really dangerous, if that makes sense. So, um,
Yeah, it's almost like a slippery slope fallacy, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm just going to do this one thing. Like it's when you go into the grocery store and you're like, oh, I'm just going to get a couple of things. And all of a sudden you get a cart full for way more money than you intended.
yeah,
And there's a bunch of junk food too.
yeah,
So there's like this, oh, I think there needs to be this intentionality behind what you're doing.
yes. Yeah, intentionality is key with either of these. When you're talking about work-life balance, I really like the idea of the separation between work hours and not work hours, right? Because that's a clear boundary for me. But with that, the acknowledgement that there are going to be times you're going to take work home,
Yeah.
right? You know those times of year where things just get backed up because of the volume, and you know you're going to need to do a little bit of work at home. And I think the encouragement would be give yourself grace for that. Like there are just going to be those times when if you can minimize them, do, but put boundaries. We're back to Pinterest doesn't care about what you're doing, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just sometimes has to be done. And those times where the volume is more, you're going to have to do the things outside of work. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think removing the rigidity can help on so many levels. Because if you feel bad that you did it, like, oh, I'm working way too many hours, and you're adding that to it, it's like who's actually getting you in trouble? You are.
Yes,
You're
this is not the work-life balance prison, right?
right.
This is not, we are not,
Great.
this is not to add to your stress load. If you have that emotional overlay to this and a rigidity to this, and that's where flow comes in for me. Like work-life balance has a flow as well. Like let's combine my first definition of flow with work-life balance, and that feels really good to me. The work-life integration or flow, the actual definition out there might feel better to somebody else. I think it's going to be highly personal.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it is. I think it's highly personal, but I think for me anyway, I have so much rigidity in my scheduling. And I think a lot of working professionals feel that way, especially when you throw kids into the mix and you have to drive people on certain schedules. And so you really have to hit all of your targets to get
yeah,
everything to go. And adding extra rigidity can feel oppressive. It can feel like your own little mini prison that you've created for yourself, even though you don't feel like you've created it. So I feel like for me, the balance that feels best is less rigidity
yeah,
and with a goal, though, and intention. So if we're not running this through our values, then I think that can create a big issue. Like if we're just doing this mindlessly and then letting the hours just pile up and then we're doing the next thing like putting junk food in the cart,
mm-hmm,
nope, we're going to stick to just the healthy food that my body needs. Like if we could use that as an analogy.
yeah.
If we're going, we're sticking to our list or we're doing what feels right and not what feels like indulging our sweet tooth.
Yeah, and going back to the idea that we've talked about before of kind of being a little bit ruthless about what you're doing and why, and does it move the needle? because during those times when your schedule gets impacted and you feel more like you have to give more to work, give more to one area than another. Um, Again, looking at what you're doing and why. Is it necessary? Is it moving the needle? Is it something that lights you up and makes you feel better and that's part of your regulation? Great. But those middle of the road areas that aren't really moving the needle but aren't really lighting you up, maybe those can go. And I wanted to back up too to talk about it's not just giving too much to work or you have to give more to work sometimes. It's there are other areas of your life that are going to take time too. When my dad was really sick,
Mhm.
that was an area of my life that I knew on the weekends I was going to be out of town. I knew that I was going to have to put more to that area of my life than to work. And that
Right.
was just that time in my life. That's where the energy went. And so decreasing my expectations of myself at work, and the amount of time I spent, extra time that I spent there, that was, that was the balance that was needed. And more was needed there at that time. I think the true definition of work-life balance, they're like shooting for 50-50. I think that's going to fluctuate based on what you have going on in your life, if that makes sense.
And then what your personality,
Hmm.
where you are in your growth and just where you are with your personality. What I heard you say there that I really wanted to highlight was energy. Like
Mm.
I feel like there's this idea of you really only have this much energy, right? However much that is for you. And you can
Hmm.
increase that sometimes by eating well, sleeping really well, exercising, maybe taking care of your mental health. Like all of those things can kind of increase your energy a little bit. But at some point, you're going to have like a fixed amount of energy.
Hmm.
So, how you're using that energy is really important and
Hmm.
let what you're letting your energy go to. Like you said, like I knew I was going to be out of town on the weekends. Like, okay, so that means that's energy for not fixing up your house, not
Hmm.
getting groceries in your house for the next week. Like all of those things that you have to do to kind of work at home
Yeah.
too. Because
Yeah.
we're
Second
talking
jobs,
about
right?
work-life balance and I'm like, well, there's work at home too
Hmm.
that we need to do. So when you're talking about, oh, I had to be out of town, I'm hearing like, you know what? Maybe we're going to buy some easier meals.
Hmm.
Maybe we're going to save some of our energy intentionally to kind of compensate for the fact that you're going to have to be working extra and then
Yeah.
probably going through this really emotional experience as well.
Yeah. So when we're looking at work-life balance, work-life flow, the flow part of work-life balance, having to put extra energy towards a particular area of your life, we're looking at a temporary thing, hopefully, right? And not always. Sometimes there are extended illnesses, extended family situations that require a more permanent shift to the way that you do things. But on the whole, when we're looking at work-life balance and work-life flow, I think we're looking at a temporary situation. Temporarily, I have to increase my amount of energy I spend over here. And so I think we also want to look at our support systems. Who can take on this thing since I'm having to leave town every weekend or wanting to visit, someone who is very sick? Who can take on some of what I already do?
Right.
And maybe we
Delegation.
try and we negotiate with them an easier way to do it. It might not be the way we would do it, but it's done,
Yeah.
right? So, and we're acknowledging that our needs matter even during these temporary times. We've got a support system that can help us with some of the things that we would normally do. But then also, those things that you were talking about doing to take care of yourself might need to shrink
Mm.
because we're putting so much energy over here. But my encouragement would be to hang on to them, even in the tiniest amount, even if it's a walk around the block instead of 3 miles, even if it's, a 2 minute meditation instead of a 30-minute meditation. It's breathing for a few minutes. It's so that you're still in the habit, you still have that identity of I am a person who walks, meditates, breathes, takes care of myself instead of letting that go. I am notorious for letting my exercise habit go once the school year starts. And so, like, that's important.
Yeah.
Even if it's shorter. During the summer, my walks are very long. They're out in nature and I love them. During the school year, they tend to get short and non-existent. So keeping that, I'm going to practice that too. Keeping that tiny habit of just lacing up and doing something, you know?
Yep. It's shorter is better than nothing.
Yes.
Um, Less frequent is better than nothing. But I think there's opportunities like you were talking about breathing, like make it a habit. Like breathing is something you can do
Hmm.
even in a meeting.
Hmm.
It's something you can do when you get into your car as like a habit. Like I'm going to breathe 3 deep breaths before I start the car. Like so,
Transitions are a great time to do that
yes.
too. Transitioning from like when you're about to go get your class, when I'm about to go get a student, when I'm walking into the building, when I'm leaving for the day. Like anytime you have a transition, if you can build in a couple of deep breaths,
Yeah.
um, or even just controlled breathing, that builds the habit and sets you up for I'm about to walk into a new situation, I'm prepared, you know? Um, and it is a practice. Breathing is a practice. We do, I mean, intentional breathing is a practice. It's something that we um, have to intentionally do,
Yeah.
to
And
regulate ourselves.
if the more repetitions we get at it, the more we remember and the more it will help us. I had read Breathe,
Hmm.
which is a book about the science of breathing.
Hmm.
And during the book, it really made me be so intentional about breathing that my watch had alerted me that my resting heart rate had gone down
Wow.
by a measurable amount.
Yeah.
It like it popped up an alert, and I was like, oh, like this is actually helping me at other times of the day when I'm not even
Hmm.
doing it.
Yeah. And
And
that brings me to a
it makes
thought.
you feel good.
Yeah, it brings me to a thought about the positive and negative impacts or potential negative impacts of work-life balance or work-life flow. And I say potential negative impacts because I wanted to kind of talk about what happens when it's hard to do that. Like, why do we not have work-life balance? When we spend too much time in that overproductive space, why is that? And what I think might, I mean, for some of us, what happens is we're concerned about the impact of not overproducing on our career, on our job, on the way people see us, on whatever else. And that leads me back to sort of those thoughts, beliefs, and feelings that we have about ourselves and really unpacking those. Is this a valid concern that I may lose my job if I have
Right.
more balance in my life? Or is this me meeting a need to feel important, valued, whatever needed? And that's why I'm overproducing, if that makes sense. So, really going inward and thinking about what it is that is stopping me from being able to have this work life balance and or work life flow, whatever it is that you define that as, or whatever works for you, if that makes sense.
So what you're saying is look at it as a top-down approach. Like look at it more analytically. Like, okay, what's really going to keep my job
Hmm.
and the quality of my job? And what is changing the fonts 5 times? Because not going to be helping anybody.
I will not confirm nor deny whether or not I have done that.
Oh, I need to go download this other font. Oh, that's another waste of time.
Another
Yes.
10 minutes of trying to
Yeah.
figure stuff out. Yeah. And so, what really will impact, I think, especially when you're in a high pressure job or a high pressure sort of environment where it feels competitive or uncertain, it gets much more difficult um, to really have that work life balance and that or that work life flow unless you start to unpack like, why am I really doing this? Is this truly a threat to
Yeah.
my job if I pull back? Or is this me only feeling like, believing, like, do I need to get in here and shift some things around, like pull some things out, figure some things out. Because it can become too easy to use productivity as a way to feel good about ourselves.
And I know that many people are going to be thinking, well, I don't have the time to sit there and think about what I'm doing. And I'm like, in my head, I don't have the time not to do that
Hmm.
because I want to make sure that my boat is heading in the right direction.
And
If
so
you're
maybe it's
if
tiny.
you're off like
Yeah.
just a little in your direction, like
Yeah.
you will end up really far from your target. So taking these extra few minutes to think about what is most important, what run them through our values, what can we delegate, what's just not important, maybe that those things that aren't going to move the needle or be
Yeah.
enjoyable. Like those thoughts do not take a long time, but can really impact your end result.
And it's maybe not even a conscious thought. Maybe it's a feeling in your body.
Mm,
Maybe it's 5 seconds of, oh, this doesn't feel right. That I'm continuing to do this. Or I'm feeling so stressed and overwhelmed that I feel like I'm about to break down. If you're feeling that way, I feel like I'm going to encourage you that you can't afford not
to
to
do
look
it.
at that. And
Yeah.
just spend a couple of seconds. Why am I actually doing this? Is this necessary? Is there an easier, smaller, shorter, faster way to get this done that doesn't involve me like all of this investment? Um, just a check in, and you might not change anything right away, but I'm going to go with our micro moves. I'm going to go back
Mm.
to our micro moves. Even if it's just a check in and you acknowledge, yeah, I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. You're not ready to change it? Perfect. Not a problem. You checked in, awareness is the first step. You might have 5 other check ins like that where you don't change anything, and that's okay. By the 6th time, 7th time, 50th time, when you're sick of yourself, it's time. Like, sometimes that's how change happens in my life. I am just sick of myself. And I want to make a change because I am so tired of how this feels. Sometimes you have to get there, and that's okay. You know, I'm not the person that changes on the first awareness. Yep, I see it. Yep, I'm still doing it. Yep, I'm still doing it. But when you're ready to change, then make that change, a tiny change. Maybe you just shift one small thing that you're doing, or you decrease one small. It's a journey.
I think that you just gave some gold there, and I think awareness without judgment
Mm,
helps you to feel more relaxed in yourself
hmm.
and to be more aware, because as soon as you're judging yourself, then you kind of shut that awareness down because you don't want to feel bad, you don't want to
It
feel
Brene
shame.
Brown does some great things around shame.
Yeah.
Shame shuts everything down. And if you are going to shame yourself, you've just shut the whole process down. If you're going to start to feel that shame. Guilt, I mean, we could do a whole episode on guilt versus shame, but a lot of us often feel shame. It's not guilt or whatever. It's like, oh, I am bad because this thing. Um, and that will shut everything down. So giving yourself grace is one of the best things you can do to keep the process running. It's not making excuses for yourself. It's saying, okay, I see this here that happened. Not great, don't love it, but I'm going to give myself grace and choose the smallest tiny step I can do next time to change it. 1% better, or, half a percent better even.
Okay, on that note, I want to review kind of our steps. So we
Okay.
know now what balance is versus flow, and that, everybody's going to have to figure out what their right combination is. And then acknowledge that there are seasons to life. Just like the seasons in our world, we have that in our careers, we have that in our family life, we have that with our aging parents. We have different seasons. And so we need to live within them and not think that the seasons are going to bend to us.
Mm,
And then we need to decide like, okay, if I'm in problem solving mode, am I able to take a step back and chart my course have some intention, run it through my values, and check in with my own body, my own self.
Mhm.
And then the next step is okay, I've checked in, I have awareness, and I'm ready for something to change. How can I get support from others? How can I build support around me? So maybe you have some good ideas of how to, if we're using the boat analogy, like,
Mhm.
okay, I have my boat, I have it pointing in the right direction. Now, how can I get a crew? How can I get
Sometimes we're not
people
given
in my
the
corner?
Yeah, sometimes we're not given the luxury of finding a crew. Sometimes life just happens and we pull in whoever is closest on our boat. And sometimes the people, the passengers on the boat aren't entirely willing. Children might be involved there. Um, and so I think it's negotiating, and I think it's looking at, especially for uh, people who have a hard time asking for help, that's going to be a hard one. But I think identifying the people around you who have a particular skill or propensity, or you've noticed things about them that, you've noticed this thing about them that would be very helpful. Going out on a limb and just asking, hey, for me, it's always, I hate to ask this because it's hard for me to ask for help, but I really could use some help with XYZ on this day. I think if you're feeling uncomfortable asking for help, making it time bound and a specific task is easier for you to ask and then easier for the other person to also be able to respond affirmatively versus I need help, for this long period of time with all of these things. So making it time bound and specific. And then, asking those closest to you. Like for my family, my child decided that she would volunteer to make dinner every night as a way. And I'm like, thank you. Because, I'm commuting the farthest. And, so those easier meals, grabbing foods that it was easy for her to combine and throw in a pan or the oven or whatever. It was really, really helpful to have that extra support. And, looking at colleagues or family members, it really depends on what it is that you're needing. But, like, during the time when my dad was really sick, all of my siblings and I would, hop on the phone or a group text and just support each other, you know. So just taking stock of who you have around you and what they're good at, what they, have to offer, and then also what you can offer them. It's not transactional, but, you do need to really look at who you have who can support you and go out on a limb if you're feeling uncomfortable and just make it time bound, specific, so that you're feeling more comfortable and it's easier for them to say yes.
So, what I'm hearing is that we need to both be internally aware of how
Hmm.
we're doing, but also paying attention to what's externally available to us, the people, the energy that we want to be around,
Hmm.
maybe what people are skilled at and what they can help with. So, there needs to be this balance of both like the internal connection, but also not fully always in that world,
Yeah.
but also looking around at who is there. I feel like I can get kind of tunnel visioned
Yeah.
when I'm really busy.
Hmm.
And I think you've encouraged me to open up my view
Yeah.
and look around because really that I'm pretty good about feeling how I feel internally, but maybe my skill that I need to work on is looking out and seeing
Hmm.
who can I pull in, knowing that the right amount of social interaction for me really does lead to my well-being.
Yeah. And you don't have to be a hero. Like yesterday, trying to put some outside lights up on my house by myself, one handed, trying to ask for help, just ask for help, right? And so I did ask my husband for help. We got them up there, but you don't have to be a hero. And that's a small example, but just in general, I think a lot of us can be sort of hyper capable, and
Uh,
looking around and actually asking for help can
yeah.
really help us to regulate and decrease our internal stress level. Even if it's uncomfortable to learn how or practice doing at first, it can be really freeing to have that support, and it can decrease our stress level on a lot of levels.
So being hyper capable can sometimes backfire
Yes, yes, it
if you
can.
if you let it. So if you're really good at it, doesn't mean you should be doing all of it
Yeah,
necessarily.
don't be a hero.
Um, yeah, don't be a hero. All right.
Mhm.
So now we know, okay, we know what workflow versus balance is, and we know that there's some mix that's going to be right for each of us, and
Yes.
that there are going to be different seasons where we need to ebb and flow and change our proportions. We need to acknowledge that there are outside experiences and incidents that will also affect that natural season, and that we need to also think to ourselves, is this temporary? Is this not temporary? And we need to chart our course. And then we need to rally our people, and we need to get our support system in place.
And also hang on to our self-care. And I hate that word that phrase self-care. It's been very overused, but we need to hang on to the practices that nourish us and keep us going and keep us healthy, right?
So
Because
maybe that could
unhealthy
be,
people, it's really difficult to do what you need to do for all of the people you need to do it for when you are unhealthy, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
so that could be like my mini move, I think.
Mhm.
I think my mini move will be, I mean, I'm thinking just coming up with all of these things and putting them fresh in my head is am so much more likely to do them.
Yeah,
But if I had to choose one little thing to do, I think that that's what it is when I'm my best, I can be my best.
yeah.
So what's one thing I can do that will help give me more energy or release negative energy? So I'm going to be trying to increase my energy
Okay.
by regulating myself and taking care of myself.
Sounds good. I think my mini move is going to be to hang on to the exercise practice. No matter how small, it's going to happen every day, even if it's 10 minutes of yoga or a 15-minute walk. It's going to be something.
And I'm really excited to hear what listeners have to
Yeah.
say about it. What are they thinking? What's the tiniest thing that you're going to do to help you move the needle, stay calm, be happy, and live your best life?
Yeah. So, what in terms of work-life balance can you do? The tiniest move, whether that's um, leave on time, leave work on time, leave work at work, reduce the amount of work that you're doing at home, clear specific space for a child, a spouse, a friend, an activity you enjoy, even if it's just a small amount of time.
And then how
So,
can you take any of those things and make them more routine?
mhm,
How can you break them down and give yourself a cue?
yeah,
Like habit stacking. Like when I do this, then I'm going to remind myself to take care of myself in this way.
I think we need to do a whole episode on habit stacking. It's a favorite of mine. So leave your comments below. Let us know what it is that you're going to do this week. One tiny move that you're going to do to move the needle towards more work-life balance. It's important for our mental, emotional, physical health. It has impacts when we do, significant impacts on our health, emotional and physical health when we do. We are able to achieve some semblance of work-life balance, and it is not a destination. Work-life balance isn't a place we arrive. It is a place that we are continually sort of, I think that's where the ebb and flow comes in, right? We're continually striving for it, hopefully in a healthy way.
And thanks so much for joining us. And remember, you're not alone. We're all going through life together without our own roadmap, and we're trying to use our resources to help figure it out. And we will do that with you one step at a time.
Yeah, we're proud of you for showing up, listening, and taking small steps forward. If you like what you hear, click the subscribe button and feel free to leave a comment or question below. We'd love to hear from you. And we hope you have a good week.